Hey, how you doing? I got some scattered thoughts for you. Happy 4th of July. If you're watching this now, it is actually as I'm filming this, it is 4th of July. So happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July. And also happy Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day. Today this day back in 1939, this is the day of the famous I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth speech when Lou sadly revealed that he was sick. and But he was a hell of a ball player, and was he played 2,130 games straight. He was the Iron Horse. That was his nickname. And then Cal Ripken broke it in 1995, and then he obliterated it. He added like 300 more to it, and yeah, that was. But no, happy Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day, and may he rest in peace. So this day in history, that was today, July 4th. I always forget that that day is on July 4th. It's hard to believe that that was done on July 4th, but it was. So, so yeah, just wanted to wish everyone a happy 4th and pay my respects before jumping right into things. So, there was some old news. Obviously, I was thinking today, there was some had a nice drive with the family. We went out and it was a nice day, beautiful day, wonderful day with the family. But when I drive, I think just like most of you, especially when you're on the highway and you're driving for at least an hour, you can't help but think. It helps when you have babies because they're sleeping, no one can talk, so you're just thinking to yourself, focusing on the road. There was an acquisition of a company called Collecticon. Collecticon's been around for about 5 years or so. Collecticon is like it was like the traveling card show. Like, we have the National every year, but Collecticon was the traveling card show that would go to all the major cities in the country and then would have like kind of like one-offs in different areas. Chicago, LA, New York, San Francisco, stuff like that, right? Dallas, I think Dallas. Don't quote me on that, but major cities and mostly TCG. There are sports. It is, there is a sports presence, but it's mostly TCG, mostly Pokemon. And the company that bought them is a company called Mari Holdings, Mari. And who owns that is the two men that run TKO, who own the UFC and WWE. And those men, their names are um, Ari Emanuel. I believe he was a very successful sports agent. And Shapiro. What was the name I had here? Oh, Emmanuel and Shapiro. We'll just call him that. It's not. Is it Josh Shapiro? Because I don't. That's the 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 governor of Pennsylvania, right? Either way, it's Shapiro. Shapiro and Emmanuel. They run TKO, but then on the side they own this holding company called Mari, Mari. So they now own Collecticon. This was done back in April, so this is old news. I actually stumbled across this from an article on Athlon News written a couple days ago. Athlon Sports. Rohit Gupta was the author, to give him credit, because it was lined up. It was pretty clever. It was like an SEO kind of deal where the UFC cards are released soon. The new release for UFC cards, and this is like, oh, by the way, the guys who own UFC bought Collecticon. I was like, isn't this old news? But it was like repackaged as new. Still old news. However, got me thinking. There is a connection to Fanatics with Ari Emanuel. He is part of it's not Silver Lake. There's another holdings company that he's part of that owns Fanatics. Owns a serious stake in Fanatics. So if there was ever a conduit between Mari and Fanatics, it would be through Ari Emanuel. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens because their whole goal was to, if I remember correctly, their whole goal was to kind of make card shows more interactive with more experiences by bringing in more celebrities, which is kind of on brand with what Fanatics is doing with all the athletes and whatnot. I mean, look at Fanatics Fest, for instance. But it's going to be interesting to see. Again, this is mostly TCG. I don't see that. I'm talking from a sports card angle. I'm a sports card guy. I'm not, I recognize TCG, right? But I'm not someone to talk about it, or I don't know anything about it. I'm not an expert, or I'm not even a novice at it. So in terms of when it comes to grading it, I own a couple One Piece cards, and that's it. Why? Because I like the way they look. Done. And Lorcana, because I tried to play it and never really got into it. Anyway, so I'm just thinking it's going to be interesting to see what happens with card shows moving forward, because it feels like they're trying to get into this like consolidation of every sector of the hobby. And card shows are an interesting part of our culture when it comes to card collecting. Card shows are almost the last bit we have to really connect. And one of the great things about card shows is that organic grassroots feeling when you're in a gymnasium of a school, walking, checking out all the tables and actually interacting with the other human beings, outside of the internet, actually in person. I'm not saying that that would go away with this Collecticon stuff, but it just kind of feels like there's going to be an eventual type of shift where it's going to somehow become harder to run a show because of the big money that's getting involved. And, I sound like a full-blown conspiracy theorist, which I'm proudly am. But, and again, this isn't going to affect sports cards yet, but it just seems that with Collecticon now running with, different rulers, it's still going to run as nothing happened, right? But, someone different is signing the checks and collecting the money. So they're going to want to make a lot of changes to it. And it's going to be interesting to see how this affects TCG shows, because TCG has been, their growth it's exponential and it's rapid. And it's easy to see what happens in TCG and then expect some type of change like that they went through to happen with sports cards. Now, it's not direct like one-to-one, but it's pretty simple to see, what's happening. Like, for instance, like the union jurisdiction issue with the card party down in the pavilion down in San Diego, where the union was like, "Nah, you can't bring your tables in. You got to pay us." And you're like, "What?" So that's because the Pokemon shows are getting much bigger, where sports card shows are like still, not as big as Pokemon shows. So it's going to. I don't want to keep saying like, "Oh, it's going to be interesting." It is going to be interesting, but I'm just hoping that this isn't something where the Collecticon shows become the only show in town because they make it easier, or if like you sign a contract with them to do a show, therefore you can only do shows through them, and then you can't, because that's how they get you, right? That's how they lock down its contracts. And you get good money with that contract, but then you can't do other shows, and if you do, and then also like most of those booths are going to be companies that fill those booths, not so much like organic collectors. Again, I don't know, and again, this has nothing to do with Fanatics. This is strictly TKO, or rather, excuse me, the men who run TKO, who run Mari. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in terms of rolling out this new ownership. Actually, one of their first shows in California is going to be in a county over from me, in San Francisco. So I'm going to check that out. I want to see what it's all about. Even if it is, there will be sports cards there, but I'm curious. I really want to get a good feel for it and see what their vision is for what is a card show, and is it even no longer a card show? Is it going to be a collectible show? And as I was talking about the other night, like collectibles, it doesn't really feel like collectibles anymore. They're flippables. So are we going to get more people there just to buy stuff so that they hope that they can sell it for more, or is it actually going to be real collectors that see something that will actually get like an emotional dividend from these things? So it's all very very interesting. It's all extremely speculative, but it's still interesting nonetheless. And we'll have to see what happens with Collecticon and just how TCG shows run. I guess the best sample to figure it out whether what the hell's going to go on with it would be like another 6 months to a year. April to now, not too many months. I would want to check in with this next summer 2027, and see what happens. Because that's where I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Fanatics kind of wiggles its way in. It's like Collecticon sponsored by Fanatics, and then if you're a card shop that needs allocation, then you got to play the game. That's what I'm thinking at here, right? But that's for sports cards, not for TCG. But are they going to make sports cards and push it in and kind of do like a 50-50 thing? I don't know. So, and I was just saying the other night, like how I wish there was more sports card shows out here. Got to be careful what I wish for, because I do not want it to be, a situation like this where, people are not forced, but they are forced to make a decision. You either ride with the corporate money and sign a contract, and therefore you can't do the independent shows. But I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. Something else I wanted to talk about. I'm noticing that being in the Bay Area, the movie Moneyball comes up a lot. It's a great movie. It's one of the best sports movies of all time, in my opinion. And it's one of the best sports stories. Like Moneyball itself was such a fantastic story. And Billy Bean on his silly fucking laptop telling his scouts that they're wrong. When the numbers didn't lie, he was right. We all know the story. And that's where, I don't want to say the birth of analytics, but that's where like analytics was taken more seriously. And then you'll see how organizations across all sports, not just baseball, rely on the analytics so much. And I kind of feel like that's kind of happened to the hobby in a way where, and I'm not complaining about this. It's just an observation, because you'll have the analytics people or the comps people, right? You see where I'm going with this? Where they'll be like, well, no, this is the amount for this card, and that's it. But that's all how they see cards. It's just comps. Like, oh, it's this level, and it was this much, and it's going up and down. And I kind of align with that to a degree, because I'm someone who is not just a collector, but I'm also an investor, and I'm also someone who has owned a business. I've sold cards, for as a business owner, and then plan to do it again, but not at a business scale like that. But so I understand that mindset. But the more and more, this like hustle kind of culture kind of takes over, if it hasn't taken over already, it kind of feels like, you can win the argument with the analytics, right? With the numbers, with the pricing, but there's no more, where's the romantics of this, right? Like where's the for the love? There's nothing better when you sell a card to someone who really wants it. Who's like, oh my God, I need this card. And it's going into the hand of a collector. It's a great feeling. It truly is. Like when I think the last one was that I sold a Terrell Owens Downtown years ago. This was 2024. Man, oh man. The guy was a huge TO fan. It was a local sale. Over the moon. Couldn't believe it. Huge T.O. fan. I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the gymnasium that T.O. inducted himself into the Hall of Fame at. That was such a good move, by the way. But yeah, that was cool. And again, not saying like, I was selling to another seller. It is what it is. And hey, sometimes you got to move shit. You got to move it. They buy it. Great. You got a buyer. Be happy you have a buyer. But it's becoming more numbers driven, and I'm seeing maybe it's a me thing where I'm like I'm running into more and more numbers driven people and less collectors. Maybe that's just because the circles I'm in or the people I'm talking to, where it's less about like, oh, this is for my PC. It's more about, oh, this is now inventory. And that's fine. Like, I'm just noticing that more and more where the collector is kind of dwindling away. But it kind of makes sense because the market's so hot too, right? Like, why not? Why would you? And I'm in that camp as well. I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself here. I'm just making an observation, but it just kind of seems that there's, the person who was collecting 2 years ago is now a seller. The person who was all about ripping to see how, if they can finish that insert set, a couple years ago is now all about flipping, and that's okay. But that's just kind of where it's going, and these analytical mindsets are really what's on the forefront here, and it's the romanticism of collecting is kind of going away. It'll only return when the money gets out of it. Money will ruin everything. That's just how it is. Money corrupts all, Maybe not all, but god damn it, 99.9%, that's for sure. So I was kind of on and on there, but I assure you that there are plenty of us that agree with this feeling and sentiment. Not in a bad way. Some will say, yeah, this is bullshit. There's no more collectors and it's all about money. Yeah, that's fair. I feel you. Don't necessarily agree completely, but I'm not going to say you're wrong. Two things can be right. But I kind of feel like the more and more I see, and also content. All content is like more than 3/4 of content is, it's all about sales and flips. It's all about how much you can make, and this challenge and the challenges are all based on the goal is to make a profit. And this is kind of where we're at right now. We're at a point of an evolutionary point or a revolutionary point. I get it. But yeah, interesting to think about nonetheless. So, and okay, last piece I want to share. Last piece I want to talk about is, now I understand the science behind this, but why are we're not forced, but why are we expected to pay more for a Chromium card when it's shipped most likely with a bend? You see that? This is a flat top loader, and this is a Ken Griffey Jr. optic card that I got in a Donruss mega box. Some hot, sexy garbage. I love hot, sexy garbage. You know it. Great looking card. It's a base optic Ken Griffey Jr. We have to spend for the bend. What's up with that? Why can't we figure this out? I get it that it's a decal on top of cardstock, and due to the change of temperature, you start getting that bend. Do we not have like some type of, I guess the foil packs are so thin that, it's not cost effective to make some kind of like, I don't know, way to protect the temperature. I mean, I guess not, right? That sounds expensive. And in the card industry, we're trying to. I say we're paying for it. They're trying to make every penny they can off of every transaction. So it's always perplexed me, where you end up getting a card in a pack that you paid more for. Chrome is a premium product. It's top tier, and then you open up the pack and it's just like it's like half pipes everywhere, you know, or it's like those cards in that game that every tourist gets ripped off on, with the guy. Hey, where did I put the ball? Where did I put the ball? Hey, you're gonna hide it under this. Want to become a street hustler? Just buy a box of Optic or Topps Chrome. You're halfway there. So, yeah, that's all I got. Also, if you made it to the end, you're watching this, thank you. I have one of these to give away to someone. Just share your favorite 4th of July experience. That would be fun in the comments. And I will pick a lucky winner who will get one of these Score 1991. This is actually a baseball card. United States flag card. This is the we pray for our soldiers and troops in Desert Storm card. So, anyhow, thank you for watching. Happy 4th of July. Be safe. Be careful with the fireworks. Be careful with the you-know-what. No driving. And have a great weekend. Ciao.